Greetings, my name is Todd Ricks and I am the Collection Strategies Librarian at Coastal Carolina University. I have been there since March 2022, and prior to coming to Coastal, I worked at a variety of roles, including Library Director at Coker University in Hartsville, South Carolina. I've been a practicing professional librarian since 2007. I want to thank you for taking time to hear about what we're doing with APC funds, open access, and open investments. I value your time, so here we go. Charleston, the Code of Conduct. I don't know if we're supposed to leave this in here. I'm just going to, and you can take a look at that. If this is your first session, then we'll see. We'll see if I'm supposed to leave this in here or not. So let's talk about Coastal's history. We are a very brand new university. Local leaders felt the area needed a junior college, and we opened in 1954. So we just turned 70. Baby boomer, actually. Baby boomer university. So one of the just kind of the unique things about how the founding of the college was the early library collection was built by local book drives, and so they unwanted encyclopedias and reference books and novels and all kinds of fun stuff ended up in the collection initially. And when we were getting ready to move a couple of years ago, we did a big weeding project, thankfully, which I missed for my sanity's sake. They found a lot of these old reference books that hadn't been weeded out yet, and that was kind of fun looking through those. We have a few left over in our archive just to keep the first library book collected. So that was kind of interesting. But now we are known as Coastal Carolina University. We are a medium-sized 11,000 FTE. We just broke that number this fall semester. Doctoral granting state-funded university near Myrtle Beach, and technically in Conway, which is kind of a suburb of Myrtle Beach, but the Myrtle Beach factor plays into this discussion a little bit later on. So we're technically, if you try to mail me something, it's in the address is Conway, but basically we're right next door to Myrtle Beach. So reputation. Let's talk about the reputation. As someone looking for state colleges. I moved to South Carolina in high school in 1990. I'm old. And I wanted to stay kind of local or in state. Guidance counselors back then were not promoting Coastal Carolina at that time. I think technically when I was looking at schools in the early 90s, it was still, it was at University of South Carolina Coastal. It was a branch campus of the flagship state university in Columbia, our state capital. And so for whatever reason, guidance counselors, they weren't pushing this school. I don't remember anyone from my small high school graduating class actually attending here. So the reputation was not great. It frequently made the top lists, and I guess it's U.S. News and World Report or Newsweek of best top party schools, and that it kind of that it lacked rigor. And you don't want to be in those lists. College presidents will tell you that they don't want to be in those lists at all. I will say though, that the 10 years after that or so, they started making big gains. The next president that came in really started to push the academics a little bit more, which was good. One of the other things we're known for is our teal football field. Teal is our color. The dark days of fall 2020, when we were all emerging from the COVID lockdowns, college football, and a lot of sports were shut down. And so Coastal had a prime time football game, one of the first, I think, played that season, was on the teal football field against BYU, and it had a lot of eyes because there wasn't anything else going on sports-wise. And I think at that point we all needed, in fall of 2020, presidential election year, much like this year, I'm recording this a few days before the vote, November 5th, we needed distractions, and this was a big distraction. And I heard from tons of people, even before I was working somewhere else. I was working at Coker and no idea that I'd end up at Coastal. But I remember people from out of state asking me if I'd ever been there, and if I've ever been to watched a football game there. And I hadn't, because it was just off the radar. But I think that drew a lot of eyes to us, which is just a nice aside. So elevating academics, that was the next stage in this. So we had new leadership in 2021. Dr. Michael T. Benson was the third president of Coastal Carolina University. And his academic background is as a historian, which is very interesting. It's very refreshing to work on a campus with an academic at the helm. My last two presidents, last two presidents that I worked for at the previous institution were CEOs or business oriented. One was a business school dean that was hired as our president. And so they have a different viewpoint, and it filters its way down in a lot of decisions that the university or college makes. But Dr. Benson gets it. He gets research. He's actually written the book on it. That is a biography of the first president of Johns Hopkins University, which is considered the first American research university. So he's actually written the book on research in higher education. So one of his big pushes initially was to increase academic rigor and faculty research output. And his kind of mantra was the 3 R's: the reach, rigor, and reputation. So that's what his big push was. He wanted Coastal's researchers out there and the research out there, and to be more rigorous and push forward with academics. So what we came together and asked, what can the library do to help? And that's a natural reaction to this kind of thing. So we decided to start an APC fund. Between library administration, along with our collections and research and scholarship librarians, that's basically all the librarians, came together, and basically bits and bobs came together to say, why not underwrite an APC fund for open access journals? Why not do this? Open access makes a lot of sense for everyone, levels the playing field for all researchers, and it's a no-brainer. Why we just want to expand in this area. So it obviously promotes open and equitable research. That gets not just for our users, but just the wider world that needs access to this stuff. More collaboration and research opportunities for faculty. That gets our faculty working with other schools' faculty and government agencies. We have a big marine science program that uses a lot of government, works with a lot of government agencies to publish and to get kind of research and climate change and ecology and that sort of thing. It obviously makes It also makes our research more available more quickly. Once it's open access, it goes right into our institutional repository, and it's as soon as they're done with it, it goes in our repository. It's available freely for everyone. So that gets the research out there quickly instead of the slowed down the formal commercial publishing process. So why the library though? Why does the library need to be involved with publishing funds and that sort of thing? Well, it saves money and with centralized billing and existing relationships with publishers. We have a long history with a lot of these academic publishers, and we have billing agreements set up. We do this, we pay bills all the time. So this makes it a lot easier for us. Instead of going through our procurement process for these dean's offices and schools and departments trying to set up methods to pay these publishers directly, we already have these existing relationships. It makes it's just easier, saves time too. So we're also better at tracking across schools and departments because we're not just siloed in our own school or department as a dean's office would be. We can track this across campus. We found out when we were doing the research for this that the dean's offices weren't tracking a lot of this data. They obviously, in the tenure promotion bit where you have to publish or perish, they were watching that. They were watching any APC funds they funded, but it didn't carry over. They weren't tracking it longitudinally. And so we have the mechanisms in place, we have the staffing in place to do that. So it made sense for us to do it as well. And also, once again, this is a recurring issue or topic, is it gets the research, this journal scholarly output into our IR more quickly. We use Digital Commons. It's open to everyone in the world, and we need to get that in there. We found also during the research that we're missing a lot of, not a lot, but a not insignificant number of articles in scholarly works that were not added to our IR. So this forces us to be better about this and get the publishing, get the output out there to people that need it. Now the tricky part, how to fund this new APC fund. So this is where I came in. I had a fresh set of eyes on various databases, ebook, journal, package subscriptions. As a new member of the Coastal faculty and removed from working directly with faculty, I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what resources were essential, optional, and so on. So I didn't have teaching responsibilities. I had that previous institutions, and it was so important. You build those relationships with faculty, and then you seem to be all of a sudden it's more difficult to cancel resources. I didn't have that, so I was kind of one step removed from it. I led the charge on cancellations, but worked with our collections committee, because you never can do this with just one person. It has to be a committee, it has to be a group to make these decisions, to cancel any redundant or underutilized resources. One of the things we did at my previous school, which I've done at Coastal, is we looked at one particular use case where we had a longtime communications professor who taught film studies courses and was the advisor for this film studies minor. As such, he requested many film journals and a couple of film popular culture databases, and a couple of, I think, one small ebook package. And then after he retired, it was decided by the business school dean, former business school dean that was now our president, that a liberal arts college didn't need to have a film studies communications professor. So they didn't hire that type of professor. That was just gone. That minor was just gone. So, it didn't make sense to keep those materials around. And so those were easy cuts. Unfortunately, with not a lot of pushback. So those are that type of thing. You have to look through and see what your institution is doing on a long-term scale, what's currently being taught rather than what was taught 10, 15 years ago. And sadly enough, that the communications major at my former institution was completely closed down right after COVID. So they don't even, the faculty person they did hire to replace the film studies professor is now teaching gen ed classes, and that's how that goes. So that was kind of low-hanging fruit, but it worked really well. And I've carried forth that process at Coastal. We've looked at that in detail. So ALMA does, we are, all of the schools in South Carolina, state and private and public, state and otherwise, are all part of the Pascal consortium, or state consortium. We're all ex libris ALMA Primo users. And ALMA allows, just not only to do your own resources that you've licensed, but also the resources that are licensed through the consortium at the network, at what they call the network zone, the institutional or consortium level. So you can match up your collections against what you already have with new collections, or with collections you may want that no one owns through what they call the community zone. That's good for purchasing for collection development, but also through the network zone, which is the stuff that we don't own, but the state, our consortium purchases. So that saves a lot of time and frustration. And the numbers, you get data that you can take to faculty members to see. They say, oh, this is an essential resource, when you have almost no one using it. And that's when you have that data, it makes it easier to build a case to cancel or cut down on a subscription. We've done that a few times too. One of the big examples at Coastal was two history archival packages that we'd had, and both were 5-figure packages, and had a lot of overlap. And coupled with some newer resources that we had and freely available resources, we could build a case to the history faculty that we don't need both of these. They didn't want to cancel it because that's how they are, but we built the case and they accepted it. Beyond just cutting things, because cutting is negative. We don't want to be negative. We also have other ways of raising revenue. We are fortunate to be located near a large, popular tourist destination, and Myrtle Beach. I told you Myrtle Beach would come back into this again. And several years ago, I'm not even sure when, I think 2018 or so, they created a specially use sales tax, a penny sales tax, to be used throughout the entire county. And the funds that are created by that go towards educational initiatives in the county, and some other things as well. There's another part of that goes to road building and all that as we grow, and that's very necessary. But coastal, is one higher ed institution. We have the technical college system in our county as well that's very big and growing, and also the K through 12 schools, which benefit from these funds as well. One of the great things about this fund is that we're at the library. We're getting 2 new buildings. We're in a new building now, and they've gutted and renovated our older building, and it will be completely built, completely gutted and renovated from the inside. When we'll move in there in early 2026. So 2 brand new buildings basically in 2024 from 2025, and no one's doing that these days. Very few schools are breaking ground on new libraries, so we're very lucky with that. And on top of all the tourism going on, we also are one of the fastest growing counties in the Southeast United States, probably the United States in general. Just the numbers of people moving down here, living here year round, just grows exponentially, along with the residual headaches of more traffic and congestion and overdevelopment, and there's lots of stuff that's wrong with it, but it's exciting to live somewhere where it's growing. So what we came up with was $100,000 in savings, which we rounded right up. It was nearly 100,000. We rounded right up into our APC fund of $100,000 this first year. It's just a nice eye-catching number, and made a lot of sense for us to make that number like that. And we had the savings in hand. We didn't even have to hit the tax money at all. So that was a really neat number to end up with. The challenge was our Byzantine state accounting practices, which don't allow for rollovers. So we were afraid if we didn't spend all the money, it would go away at the end of the fiscal year. And so a discussion was held much higher than my pay grade about how to prevent this, and somehow they figured out a way, worked their magic with the accounting people, so we did not lose all of the money, or at least kept some of it. So, starting an APC fund and performance. So the first step was to create a framework, and we didn't reinvent the wheel with this. We basically grabbed some frameworks from other universities and libraries that have done this, and we started off with a $5,000 limit per article, per faculty member per year, unless funds were left over. So that's a good round number, as you could see in the earlier. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. And one of the stipulations was they must be open access journals. Hybrid and delayed access were not eligible initially. We wanted to make sure that the majority of our money went to fully open access materials and not hybrids or delayed or embargoed. That didn't make sense for us. And also, once again, we need to reiterate that we must provide a copy. The author must provide a copy for our institutional repository. So we use Digital Commons. We need to get those copies. We had issues with this in the past with faculty and deans not passing, mostly faculty, not passing that along to us in a timely manner. This was, if you're going to get the money, you got to give up the article early on in the process. So getting the word out, that was the next step of this. Is once we get the framework in place, then we had to go out and start to meet with our liaison librarians, our scholarly communications librarian, university librarian, and marketing staff. Met with various faculty, deans, provosts, just to get the word out. And we started in August when faculty are back on campus, and the campus meetings, those first few days before classes start, and everyone's got the crazy week back to faculty week. And we met with various stakeholders around campus just to announce what we're doing and got a very positive feedback. We had a press release that was actually very successful. Our university marketing and communications folks put together a great press release that got picked up by the usual suspects Against the Grain, Charleston Hub, Marshall Breeding's site, I think Inside Higher Ed and Chronicle of Higher Ed had blurbs here and there. A lot of us heard from other former colleagues that saw the headline and congratulate us. So we got a lot of positive feedback, and that's going back to the President's 3 Rs, reach is one of them. We're getting the reach. Oh, Coastal's doing this, and it's just good marketing. It just makes a lot of sense. So year one, we ended up with 16 faculty members publishing with 23 articles. And I know we're mostly librarians here, so math probably isn't our strong suits. But yes, we did allow for double dipping. So we had a couple very prolific publishers hit us a couple times that last year. So 23 articles. We only spent about 48,500, so a little less than half. We figured we'd spend between 50 to 60% of our fund of 100,000, so that's a little bit below that, but that's fine. It's about $2,100 an article, so we didn't even hit the limit. I think a few of the requests came pretty close to that limit, but that $5,000 seemed to be a good number. So what's next? Year two is underway. We decided to, with the resource savings from the previous year, we were able to build into our budget a permanent $50,000 to fund APCs, and we should have the flexibility to go above that if we need to. And of course, we have the backstopping of the penny sales tax funds that can factor into that. More work needs to be done for faculty outreach. We added a lot of new faculty this semester, so it's got to be a constant, ongoing process to keep everyone up to date with this fund, because newly minted PhDs and recent graduates have had their, probably don't know how open access publishing works. They may have picked up, may have published throughout grad school. Open access may not have been a viable option as a graduate student. There's a lot of different issues with that. So we need to make sure we're continually reaching, spreading the word around with our, especially new hires and people that are new, both newly minted and new to Coastal. So we're also going to be looking for unique funding opportunities, and that's a big push this year. This year we've got something very, very unique, and we actually sponsored, helped pay for not really paid for it, but helped to offset some of the costs of recording an album by one of our faculty members. Dr. Eric Schultz is a professor and clarinetist, and used the APC fund for the funding of the recording of an album of classical music. It was recorded on campus in association with our Master of Technology program. And students were, the students were in charge of, recording engineering and setting up microphones and leveling and all that stuff. So that was really kind of cross-disciplinary with multiple layers between graduate program and undergraduate students working on this. So that was really a really important feature of this particular product. As an aside, and this is just speaking of libraries, academic libraries in general, had this come across my desk and I was the sole decision maker, I'm not sure I would have approved it. I love music, but at first glance, I wouldn't have seen the connection between scholarly publishing and a recorded classical album. And my supervisor, John Feltz, and I've mentioned him a few times, he was a big proponent of this APC fund to begin with, really the driving force behind it. He was a professional musician in his previous life, so he saw the benefits of it right away, and saw that really had it's a good use of our funds, especially when we have a little extra. So, and I have to remember that for scholarly publishing, tenure and promotion, you have to publish, and this is just as important as a scholarly article for a more traditional program. A research article or a chapter in a book or editing a collection of chapters. So this is just as good, just as weighted on our end as it would be for them, for the traditional scholarly output. So going back to that, it goes to show you why we need a wide breadth of backgrounds, academic and otherwise, in academic librarianship. Just because John had that particular set of skills of being a musician, a professional musician, he saw that. I wouldn't have seen that, even though I love music, and I just didn't think that. And Dr. Schultz, knowing that one of the stipulations was the material has to be available in our IR immediately, he did that. He offered it up, but we decided to embargo it basically for 6 months. It's loaded on our site, but it's hidden behind a paywall. You can't get there yet. Just so he can recoup some streaming revenue from that. It is available on Apple Music. It's available on Spotify, YouTube Music, I'm sure. Of course, if you followed any of the way these companies pay out artists, popular music artists, Taylor Swift or whoever, you know, they don't get, it's pennies on the dollar. They don't make a lot of money doing that. So, and classical music is even further down the, you know, popularity level. So just giving him the opportunity to get a little bit of revenue from that would be a good idea. So that will be available on our our IR site, Digital Commons, in a few months. So going back to unique funding opportunities, who knows what we can do next with this? We could probably maybe a play or a piece of artwork or something along those lines. And of course, we have a press release going out on this because I think it's important to spread the word that we're doing unique stuff with this as well. So next, this so far, you know, we're only today it's the end of October, early November. We're, you know, 5 months into the fiscal year, 4 months into the fiscal year. We're up to 15 items funded. So we're up, you know, almost 2/3 of the way to all of last year with 14 articles and 1 album. And I did a similar talk at NASIG a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago I recorded it. And that this number, I had to edit this number, it almost doubled. So that was really exciting to see. As we, you know, folks get back into the swing of the semester and publishing starts to pick up a little bit, we'll get that, that'll go up definitely. So that was good to see. So moving forward, we're going to pivot, continue to, you know, we've reduced the fund a little bit. We're going to pivot to open investing. Instead of an APC fund, we're going to start to, obviously we're going to keep the 50,000, but some of that we carved out will go towards, you know, open investments. Because it just broadens the mission beyond underwriting just our faculty article processing charges, but it also makes access more equitable for all researchers. Like I said, before I came from a very small school, APC funds were not something that we could ever hope to do out of a library budget, and was a stretch for some years in the provost's office. So, you know, we were users of open access materials, big users of that. So we appreciate that at a small school. And of course, someone has to pay for this stuff. These publishers aren't going to do it out of the goodness of their own hearts. So I'm glad I'm at an institution that can afford to give back. And I've seen it on both sides, and I think it's important that schools that can support, do support. So the $100,000 was a big attention-catching number, but not sustainable or necessary for us. This, you know, investing in open access journals, the open invest part of it makes a lot of sense right now. So we've also increased the transformative agreements, which reduces the need for APC funds, and that's a big one for us. We've had 1 or 2 such agreements for years, but now we've added that we're up to 7 full or partial transformative agreements, and we're going to be adding more. We currently are have agreements with annual reviews, Cambridge University Press, Springer Nature, Wiley, Frontiers, and there's a few others. And soon we're going to be in with Elsevier, which is a big one. That's a really big one for our faculty, especially our marine science folks. So, and the last part of this is our ebooks. We're going to be supporting more ebooks, open ebooks, and that's been something new for us. I know a lot of schools have been doing that for a long time, but this is something that we really wanted to push because that's where our users are, our students. We are primarily an undergraduate research institution, institution. So we need to support what our users want. So this just seems like a natural extension to push more of our funding towards that in that direction. So we're currently supporting JSTOR's Path to Open, Knowledge Unlatched, and MIT Press Direct to Open. And that is it. I thank you very much. That's a picture of our new building, the one that we're in right now. That's a beautiful building. If you have any questions, just let me know right now, or you can email me later at tricks@coastal.edu. But I thank you very much for your time.